Good morning. This is Susan, and this is Susan's Ramblings. I have been looking at different old cookbooks, looking for recipes that we can use with our pantry stuff, since the prices are going so high and we have so many shortages. Anyway, a lot of these recipe books, cookbooks, and this happens to be a church cookbook, I believe, has list of substitutions in them, and also they have hints in them. So I am going to, I believe this is a church one that's from somewhere in Arkansas, I believe, but I'm not quite sure. Anyway, here's the substitutions that they have for those in that book. Self-rising flour, 1 cup of all-purpose flour, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. My recipe says 1/4 teaspoon of salt, because you can always add salt, but you can't take it away, okay? Cornstarch, 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons of flour or 2 teaspoons of cooking tapioca. Baking powder, for 1 teaspoon, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, plus 1/2 teaspoon of cream of tartar. I believe I've given you that one too. Powdered sugar, for 1 cup, 1 cup of granulated sugar, plus 1 teaspoon of cornstarch, and I believe you put that in your blender and you blend it until it is very, very fine. Brown sugar, 1/2 cup equals 2 tablespoons of molasses and 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and you mix that up until it's all combined very well. Sour milk, for 1 cup of sour milk, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice or vinegar, plus the sweet milk to make 1 cup, and you let it stand for 5 minutes. Whole milk for a cup, 1/2 cup of evaporated milk, plus 1/2 cup of water. Cracker crumbs, 3/4 cup, 1 cup of breadcrumbs. Chocolate, 1 square of chocolate. You can have 3 or 4 tablespoons of cocoa, plus 1 tablespoon of butter. Fresh herbs, 1 tablespoon. You use 1 teaspoon of dried herbs. Fresh onions, 1 small one. 1 tablespoon of instant minced onion, rehydrated. Dried pepper, a dry mustard, 1 teaspoon equals 1 tablespoon of prepared mustard. For tomato juice, 1/2 cup of tomato sauce plus 1/2 cup of water will give you 1 cup of tomato juice. Ketchup or chili sauce, 1 cup of tomato sauce plus 1/2 cup of sugar and 2 tablespoons of vinegar will give you 1 cup of ketchup or chili sauce to be used in cooking. Dates, for 1 pound, that equals 1½ cups of dates, pitted and cut. Bananas, 3 medium bananas will equal 1 cup of mashed. And mini marshmallows, 10 mini marshmallows will equal 1 large marshmallow. In substituting cocoa for chocolate in cakes, the amount of flour must be reduced, and brown and yellow and white sugars generally are used interchangeably. All right, that's the substitutions. That's the substitutions in that book. Let me see here. Cooking terms. Baking tips. For your cakes, when a recipe calls for flouring the baking pan, Use a bit of the dry cake mix instead, so you don't flour mix, so you have no flour mess on the outside of the cake. For a perfect shaped cake or jelly rolls, first grease the pan, then line it with greased unwaxed paper. After baking, invert the pan and peel off the waxed paper. No more broken corners or edges, and great for fudge and bars. You got to remember these cookbooks are very old. This one, I believe, was in 1990, so it's 30 years old. And at that time, they didn't have the parchment paper and so forth that we have now. When frosting cakes, always anchor the bottom cake layer to the serving plate or a lazy Susan with a dab of frosting. That way, the cake won't slide about as you frost it. This also helps keep a cake from sliding on its face during transit. The frosting will hold the cake in place deliciously, and your dessert will arrive in perfect shape. To prevent anything from running off your case, try dusting the surface lightly with cornstarch before icing. When filling and frosting a cake, place the first layer with the bottom side up. Place the last layer with the top side up. For best results in cake baking, let the eggs, butter, and milk reach room temperature before mixing. In fact, when you're baking, that's what you should, those ingredients should be at room temperature. A handy substitute for cake flour: 1 cup minus 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour equal 1 cup of cake flour. And if you want to make your own cake flour, you just take your all-purpose flour, and you just sift it, and you sift it, and sift it, and sift it again, at least 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times, and then it will be fine enough to be your cake flour. To prevent nuts and fruits from sinking to the bottom of a cake during baking, warm them a little bit in the oven and toss them with flour. Shake off the excess flour before mixing them into the batter. If cake flour is hard to find, you can make your own with all-purpose flour. To every cup of cake flour called for in a recipe, substitute a cup of all-purpose flour, but replace a tablespoon of the flour with the cornstarch. Always bake bars on the middle rack in the oven and cookies on the top rack. If baking more than one pan at a time, place them at different angles on different racks to allow maximum circulation of the heat. Alternate their placement on the racks halfway through the baking time. You should cool cookie sheets between batches to keep unbaked cookies from melting and thinning at the edges before they can be set by the heat of the oven. Don't have a baker's supply of cookie sheets, spoon cookie doughs onto large sheets of greased aluminum foil. When the cookie sheet becomes free, allow to cool. Then lay the foil with the cookie dough right on top of the sheet. Yeast will last longer than the specified date printed on the packet if it's kept in the refrigerator, or even longer in the freezer for up to a year. If you bake a lot, it's wise to purchase larger amounts in a freeze. Place in a tight sealed plastic or glass container and mark the date of purchase. Bring to room temperature before using. There's no law that says biscuits have to be round. Roll the dough into the rectangle and cut out square shapes so you don't have to keep re-rolling it. Use non-stick cooking spray to spray the inside of the bowl you will be using to raise yeast dough. Then spritz the top of the dough itself, a much neater method than spreading with oil. Always keep chocolate at room temperature to prevent it from splintering and flying around when chopped. Cold chocolate is hard to cut, and a knife may slip and cut you. To chop chocolate in a food processor, chill the chocolate slightly and pulse it just until chopped. Sometimes a grayish color develops on chocolate. This is called bloom, and it's a sign that the cocoa butter has risen to the surface. Flavor and quality will not be lessened, and the grayish color or bloom will disappear when the chocolate is melted. Measure 1 tablespoon of granulated Measure 1 tablespoon of granulated yeast for each 1/2 ounce called for in a recipe. Semi-sweet chocolate morsels and semi-sweet chocolate squares can be used interchangeably when a recipe calls for this type of chocolate melted. If you like baking, keep 2 kinds of flour on hand, one with the high gluten content for the bread, and one with the low gluten content for the cake, cookies, and quick breads. That's it for today. We'll see you later. Have a great day. God bless you. Bye-bye.